All right, everyone. We'll wait one more minute as we see lots of people joining.
Good.
All right. We had a host of people joining at once. I wanted them to have an opportunity to get situated. But we'll go ahead and begin 2 minutes after the hour. I want to welcome everyone and say hello. My name's Andrew Burnett. I'm the Vice President of Workforce and Rural Health at the Tennessee Hospital Association. Welcome to the first of our 2024 Healthcare Workforce virtual programs offered to our THA membership and healthcare workforce stakeholders across the state. We have many topics this year that we want to extend to our members and partners that pertain to best practices related to the recruitment and retention of healthcare professionals. Many of you hopefully attended our December 6th program last year, focused on healthcare apprenticeships and employment models, and we'll continue this discussion next week on Wednesday, February 7th from 1 to 2:30 Central, when we'll have speakers from the Department of Education, Murray Regional Medical Center, Fort Loudon Medical Center of the Covenant System, and a CTE director from the area as they discuss work-based learning programs for high school students 18 and under. We invite you all to register for that event if you haven't already. Let us know in the chat box if you need to see that registration, and we'll send it along. Next, I'd like to turn it over to THA's Director of Workforce Strategies, Farrell Thomas, as she introduces today's program and guests. Farrell?
Thank you, Andrew. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. Happy New Year to everyone. And we're very excited to get this workforce webinar series started for 2024, as Andrew mentioned. And I'm very happy to introduce our speakers today and our exciting topic on hospital and academic partnerships and how collaboration is really one of the best strategies towards our workforce needs in the state. So just jumping right in, because we want to have plenty of time for questions. Dr. Victoria Niederhauser is joining us from the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. She is the Dean and Professor and the Chief Academic Officer for the College of Nursing. And she is joined by Dr. Sandy Leek, who is also the Senior Vice President and Chief Nursing Officer for University of Tennessee Medical Center and University Health Center. I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to these wonderful ladies so that they can dive into their topic, and we'll get started. Just as a housekeeping, if you'll remember that everyone is muted as they've come in, and please utilize the chat feature. There's also a question feature if you're familiar with GoToWebinar. But I will be monitoring the chat, and you are welcome to ask questions and unmute throughout the presentation if needed, but we will have plenty of time for questions at the end. So please also put your questions in the chat, and then we will address those as we go on. So thank you very much, Dr. Niederhauser and Dr. Leek. Happy to have you.
Thank you very much, Farrell. We're really excited to be here and to talk with you all about a unique, I think, and really exciting partnership that Vicki and I have engaged our respective entities in, and it's called the BSN Scholars Program. And it really is a collaborative initiative designed to enhance the RN workforce in East Tennessee. Next slide, please, Farrell. Thank you for handling the slides for us today. So Vicki and I both have been in the positions we hold, either here or other places, for quite some time, and fortunately have had a long history of being involved in robust academic practice partnerships. So when I came to the University of Tennessee Medical Center in May of 2020, there was just this really logical and wonderful alignment in thinking and in addressing workforce problems that Vicki and I shared. So we started out with really the problem statement, and the problem statement that we all know is that we are experiencing yet another nursing shortage in this country. And certainly even before the COVID-19 pandemic, nursing shortages occurred on and off due to a variety of factors, including like economic swings and retiring nurses and increased healthcare demand. But certainly as the pandemic really hit in March 2020, that escalation and that shortage really began to take hold and increase at a rapid pace. And the demand for registered nurses across the healthcare system surged. At the same time, I think in part because of the pandemic, nurses began to leave the workforce in very high numbers. There was a study done in April of 2020 by Dr. David Auerbach and published in Health Affairs that showed that the total supply of registered nurses in the United States decreased by more than 100,000 during the 2 years of the height of the pandemic. And that was the largest drop ever observed over the past 4 decades. Those were attributable just to stress, to burnout, to retirements that happened perhaps earlier than anticipated because of the stress of the pandemic. And sadly, a number of those 100,000 nurses leaving the workforce were under the age of 35, and most were employed in hospitals. So that was a significant concern that we recognized. There also was a problem in that University of Tennessee at Knoxville is not unlike a lot of other colleges where the number of applicants far exceeds the ability of the school to enroll, the numbers they can enroll. And many of these students applying at UTK are very talented, very high GPA, very well qualified to enter nursing school anywhere. There's simply a capacity challenge. So it's terrible, it's painful to turn away high quality applicants when we know our workforce needs are so significant. And we know that nursing shortages have a significant impact on patient outcomes and hospital finances. I mean, a lot of us dealt with incredible expenditures that are not sustainable because of requiring contingent labor and travelers during the pandemic. And then just to cover with overtime and critical shift bonuses and the like to fill those workforce needs is very financially impactful to our health systems. And we also know that when staffing is not what it needs to be, that we have unintended negative outcomes, and the cost of hospital-acquired conditions and events can be very, very, very steep. So the problems were pretty simple to identify, and yet we recognized we had opportunity to do something about them. So Vicki, I'll pass to you.
And I'll jump in and talk a little bit about the opportunity, because I think both Sandy and I's philosophy is let's not talk about the problems. Let's try to strategize about the opportunities. And we did see that we had multiple opportunities in front of us as we both talked about our challenges. Because as Sandy said, it's very difficult to be a nursing school that turns away so many people who want to be a nurse when we're in a crisis, really, in our state and in the nation. And so the opportunity was that, we have had, as a College of Nursing, a long-standing relationship with academic practice partners like UT Medical Center. And more so, our national organization, the American Association of Colleges of Nursing, are encouraging us to build partnerships where we can find some win-win solutions to both our issues in academia as well as the issues in practice. We have at the University of Tennessee 3 different tracks, 3 different pathways to a BSN. We have an accelerated pathway for people who have a degree in another field, who want to come and become a nurse. That's a 12-month program after students do their prerequisites with us. We have the traditional BSN program, and then we have the RN to BSN program. And UTMC really has a desire to hire at the baccalaureate level or higher degrees for their nurses. Part of that is that they are magnet designated, and that is one of the criteria, is to have, you know, a majority of the workforce being baccalaureate or higher prepared. But I think the other part is really around the studies that have been done out of the University of Pennsylvania, where they have shown in multiple different studies that better patient outcomes are tied to health centers and hospitals that have a higher percentage of baccalaureate nurses working in them. And we at the University of Tennessee knew that we had the capacity to grow enrollment. We certainly would have some challenges with growing enrollment, but we knew that we could do it. And I think that given both of the spirits of UT Medical Center and Sandy and her team, and at the College of Nursing and my team here, we really went into this as a spirit of, let's figure out how we can make something happen. Next slide.
So really the purpose that that we developed after a lot of, and this entire project, I will just say, just to put some context around it, happened in a period of about a year, from initial concept to actually dedicating the building and having students in place, which you'll see more about in a minute. But we were really clear about what our purpose was, and it really was to build a reliable pipeline of qualified BSN prepared registered nurses to meet workforce needs, primarily at the University of Tennessee Medical Center, because we're funding the project, but also throughout the region. I mean, the better we're able to fill our workforce demands, you know, the less competition there, you know, there has to be within all the systems that are essential to provide care to residents of East Tennessee. And we were going to do that by enhancing the strong existing partnership that we have with between the medical center and the UT College of Nursing, and by establishing a dedicated College of Nursing campus on the University of Tennessee Medical Center property, or property that we lease. And in fact, it's just across Alcoa Highway from our main campus. We intended from the outset to provide full tuition support to all students enrolled in this BSN Scholars Program in exchange for a 3-year service commitment to the University of Tennessee for employment post-graduation. And again, while we were primarily intending to address our workforce needs, we also were cognizant and aware of the impact that increasing the total number of nursing graduates would have on our ability to care for residents in our region. So those were our primary purpose statements. Next slide, Farrell.
Okay, so going back to what I mentioned just a few minutes ago, that we really looked at this as a 3-pronged approach to this UT Scholars Program. And I'll go ahead and describe the 3 different approaches. So phase 1 was really looking at our accelerated BSN program and seeing how we could enhance the educational opportunity for our students in the ABSN students, and have them go to work after that 12-month period at UT Medical Center. So what we did here in this particular phase 1, we'll call it, is that we, the University of Tennessee Medical Center committed to a $1 million endowment at the University of Tennessee College of Nursing. And that $1 million will yield scholarship every year of about $45,000. This was also the opportunity, we're building a new building, so UT Medical Center, along with this endowment, was also able to name one of our student unions in our new building also. And so that $45,000 is then matched with some money that the UT College of Nursing is putting in through our scholarship fund. And we're able to provide scholarship to 8 students annually in the ABSN program who are willing to make a 3-year work commitment at the University of Tennessee Medical Center. We started in the fall of 2022 with 8 scholars, and those scholars have graduated and are in the midst of being indoctrinated into the nursing profession at UTMC, and we have another group of students that started. So this is an annual thing. Where we're really going to focus on today is that middle piece of the puzzle, which is phase 2, which is what we're calling the BSN Scholars Program. So phase 1 was accelerated BSN, phase 2 is the BSN Scholars that we're going to talk about today. And as Sandy mentioned, this was from conception to students starting in the program less than a year, probably closer to 10 months. Our first goal and our first cohort that we brought in was this past fall of 2023. We had a goal of 54 students to start. However, we had 42 who we were able to get into the program in that short period of time, because these students obviously needed their prerequisites done to come right into the nursing curriculum, which is that 4-semester, 2-year program. Our goal for the next year, cohort 2, this is starting in fall 2024, will be 78, and year 3 will be, cohort 3 will be 102 students, which will start in fall 2025. I want to make sure that you're clear, and this is very important, is that this is above and beyond the numbers that we had planned to have in our program. This is in addition to our planned class size. And so when Sandy said, yes, this is going to help UTMC, it is also going to help our state, because we are putting out additional nurses, and whereby we might have had 40, 30, or 40 nurses go to UTMC when they graduate. By cohort 3, we're going to have 103 go there, so they won't be hiring our regular graduates who aren't in this program, so they'll be available throughout the state. So in a lot of ways, it's a win-win for the state too. And then I'll just mention very quickly, this is phase 3. This is, again, our hope, and we'll get it moving and wheels turning, but it'll be the RN to BSN scholars. So again, those nurses who graduate from an associate degree program or a diploma program who want to go work at UTMC, we're going to figure out a way to scholarship them, and they'll be able to work at UTMC while getting their BSN on our completely online 12-month RN to BSN program. You can go to the next slide.
So some of this is a little bit, is going to summarize a bit of what I've said already. But our goals, as we said, were to increase the UT Medical Center BSN workforce and the number of BSN graduates in our region. And again, emphasizing that everybody we enroll in this program is an additional person to what the College of Nursing would otherwise have been able to accept. Students are educated at a new campus at Cherokee Farms, right across the highway from our main hospital campus, in a newly designated, it was existing space. We're going to show you this a little bit more in a minute. It was existing space that we went in and built out. It really is a state-of-the-art facility. It includes classrooms, learning labs, high and low fidelity simulation labs, faculty spaces, student spaces, and it really is just beautifully designed, and it's a wonderful space for learning there. The students will conduct the majority of their clinicals here at UT Medical Center, and we were really clear about that because we know that that will help us get to know those students, for them to get to know us, for them to become familiar with our organization, and really facilitate their transition to practice once they graduate. We're even looking at how we can begin some of their actual employment orientation before they graduate during their clinical training. We equipped the learning labs over there with the same electronic health record, for example, that we use here at UT Medical Center. So that learning curve will be largely established by the time they graduate. There also are employment opportunities for these BSN scholars who can work in nurse technician positions, during their educational program. And really one of our goals was to reduce the financial burden for nurses as they enter the profession and the workforce. There are a lot of different data out there about average tuition and student loan debt, but it can range, but the average I found was about $37,000 for the average student loan debt. And that's a very significant burden for a young person starting their career, and really for any of us. But so we felt it was really important that we provide full tuition so that they didn't have any tuition-based student loan debt upon graduation. Next slide, Farrell, please. Thank you. So again, I think this primarily is summarizing what we've talked about before, but I'll mention a few things that are a little bit different. Vicki did mention our initial target was 54 students, but we enrolled 42, and we were really happy with that based on the fact that this program came together so quickly that students who might have been interested really did not have advanced time to prepare and maybe take that required prerequisite that they might have needed in order to start in August of 2023. So given how quickly things came together and the short notice many of these potential students had, we were very, very happy with recruiting 42. Down on the third section, the BSN Scholars Program does follow an accelerated track, meaning that they go fall, spring, summer, fall, instead of the traditional path that takes summer as a break. So they start in fall of one year, and in 4 consecutive semesters then have a December graduation. And so we do make full use of that summer semester. And again, our cohort target of 78 in fall of 2024 and 102 in fall of 2025. Although if we can recruit more than 78 in 2024, we will certainly do that. Next slide, please.
Okay, so this is just a picture of our timeline. As you can see, with that accelerated pathway to the BSN, it's the same exact curriculum. It's just an accelerated pathway to get there. So again, another advantage is that these students are getting out into the workforce 6 months earlier. So less debt in the workforce earlier. It really is a great opportunity for them. But you can just see that for us, it's a little bit of a challenge because as we started the first cohort, we were kind of alone every semester. But each fall that we start the cohort, we will have a second cohort finishing. And out to once we get to fall of 2026, we'll be at our maximum, which is going to be that we would love to have these cohorts of 102 students every year. Again, bringing into UT Medical Center 102 new folks with a 3-year commitment. They believe will absolutely stabilize their workforce and decrease the need for traveling nurses, expensive traveling nurses. We also believe that if you think about it, if you are educated in a facility and you're training in a facility that looks exactly, and I know Sandy's going to talk about this in a minute, but our new learning center looks exactly like UT Medical Center, and you're doing all your clinical rotations in that facility, and even if you get a job as a tech in that facility, we do believe that we will have a better prepared, better ready to practice graduate in this program. And we do intend to do a little bit of study around that topic. So you can go on to the next slide. So as we were envisioning this, we talked about, well, what does success look like, for us? Not only did we have to recruit our students, traditionally, if you had talked to anybody on this campus here at UT, they would have said it's impossible to transfer into nursing as a junior. Usually we've had between 0 slots and maybe 10 or 15 slots every year, and with well over 200 interested in being a nurse and moving into nursing, because we do admit as freshmen into nursing. And as long as the students keep their GPA up, they come right in the junior level. So we had to also recruit and hire quality nursing faculty, because we need a lot of faculty to be able to teach in both our clinical arena, but also in the simulated and learning lab too. And because this was another facility, we needed a whole nother staff to help out with the simulated learning, the learning lab, the skills lab, in addition to what labs we have on campus, because we couldn't deal with the numbers of extra students on campus with our space. We also needed to do support staff, like folks like an advisor for these students. We really felt like we needed a leader who could, a nurse faculty leader who could be kind of the spokesperson for the BSN Scholars Program. So we had to recruit and hire our support staff to help us with that. We also will continue to partner with the existing nursing staff at UTMC who desire to educate future generations of nurses by having them precept these students when they get to their preceptorship, and help out when these students are on the floor. If you can think about it, for the staff nurse who's working with one of these students, they're investing in this person. They know that this person's going to come and work at the organization. We feel like there might be a little bit more of an investment in really trying to be generous with your time and energy around teaching, knowing that this person is going to be an employee in the organization. And then we'll talk a little bit more. Sandy's going to share with you about, it was really fun to designate and create our learning space. And this was also for didactics, so classrooms, simulated learning, and our clinical skills lab. And one of the advantages we had over this was a couple of advantages. First of all, we had an architectural and construction team who were right on target and could move quickly. But the second thing was, because the College of Nursing is in the midst of planning a brand new, very large building on campus, we had some experience in, redesigning learning spaces and clinical labs, as well as simulation labs. So I think that helped propel us a little bit quicker. Next slide, please.
So what you see here is a schematic of our Cherokee Farms campus layout. You see the legend up in the top right and what each area is being utilized for. But basically, the area in gray is not currently part of the BSN Scholars Program campus, but we are looking at the possibility, and we do have first right of refusal on lease for some of this space that's going to be coming available in the relatively near future, and we're looking at possibilities related to some of that. But as you'll see, we've got skills labs, high fidelity simulation, classrooms, student lounges, other support areas, faculty offices, faculty lounges, about 12,000 net usable square feet. The parking is ample. It's a great building. There are big windows, a lot of natural light, and we're just very, very pleased with the way the build out of this space happened, and the quality, really the quality of the building upon completion. We'll show you some photos in the next couple of slides. If you'll advance, please, Farrell. These are some just snapshots of photos from our grand opening for the program, which occurred in August of 2023. The top left program is a photo of our first student cohort. in one of the classroom spaces. You'll see in the middle to the right that we co-branded the building on the exterior with the University of Tennessee Medical Center and the University of Tennessee College of Nursing logos. We had an official ribbon cutting. Students showed up to the ribbon cutting and grand opening. They were very excited. They brought their parents with them. The picture at the bottom near the right, just to the left of the stethoscope, is one of our students and her parents who came to our grand opening. And there was just wonderful excitement. We had potential donors because the BSN Scholars Program is one of our top 3 philanthropic opportunities and priorities at UT Medical Center over the next several years. And it was just a really, really great day. Next slide, please, Farrell. Just a few more pictures on the left, some of the learning labs. Again, as Vicki mentioned before, we tried to configure the learning lab as much as possible to mimic what our hospital looks like. The same beds, the same bedside monitors, the same, non-invasive blood pressure cuffs, everything from top to bottom is as close as we could get it to what is typical at UT Medical Center. You just see students in the middle there working on a mannequin, and to the far right we have our simulation control room, and the simulation capability is state of the art and really, really phenomenal, and with one-way glass, and obviously used like a typical high fidelity simulation lab, but really promotes learning and advances learning pretty dramatically. Next slide, please. Budget was a little challenging from the beginning to figure out, but we were very fortunate that we had a very savvy chief financial officer in the College of Nursing, and certainly one here at the Medical Center, who worked together in tandem to help develop a budget for the program. And you'll see the years outlined at the top of the slide. Those are based on academic year budgets, which does not entirely coincide with our calendar year budget cycle at the Medical Center. So, we have learned some lessons along the way. I think we'll talk about that in a minute, about ways we might have made it a little easier on ourselves as we were developing this program. But this is basically what the budget model looks like. And we used a lot of different approaches to try to figure out what the actual cost should be. Our CEO, Mr. Joe Landsman, was very clear that we were going to be paying cost and not purely tuition, but we did use an average tuition for both in-state and out-of-state students to help create the budget model. We made some assumptions that we wanted approximately a 75% in-state and 25% out-of-state student mix for a variety of reasons. First of all, because the out-of-state students their tuition can be very high, and because we have a theory, and as we move forward and get more data over time, we'll see whether this is accurate or not. But we do believe that students who are from East Tennessee, or certainly in-state students, are possibly more likely to stay and work in the state post-graduation. But our 4-year expense total is almost $14 million. But again, that yields about 336 additional RN graduates, all with a 3-year service commitment. And that is, when we considered all things together, we felt that the value proposition was very strong. And this is, the way we moved forward. And we're, really, really excited about where it's going to head. Next slide, please, Farrell.
So when we worked through the budget assumptions and looking at the cost of the program, we did look at ratios of what kinds of needs we would have for faculty and student ratios. And so the assumption was, in a clinical setting, we have 1 faculty member to 7 students. And this also is the same in our simulation lab too. In our didactic classrooms, 1 faculty member per every 30 students too. We also knew that individual student aid packages would vary, and that UTMC would pay what we call the last dollar. So whatever was left in the student's account, because our students sometimes will get some of the state scholarships like the UT Promise or the UT Pledge, and some also get private scholarships too. So whatever the balance is in the student's account at the beginning of the semester, after all of the scholarships have been paid down, that is what UTMC is paying, and it's paying the fees as well as the tuition. And so we knew that that would vary, and we had to make some, as Sandy said, some assumptions about what is the average cost in state, out of state. And we did try at first to have this in-state, out-of-state mix, and we'll talk about lessons learned in a bit. This was extremely challenging and probably one of the biggest surprises. You know, hindsight's 20/20, but definitely one of the biggest surprises that we had, because if you think about it, someone who owes $5,000 a semester compared to someone who pays $25,000 a semester, the motivation is a little bit different to attain a full ride last dollar scholarship with the $25,000 versus the $5,000. So we'll talk a little bit about how we worked around that, I think, in just a moment with that. And we also knew that we would have to recruit faculty and staff and marketing costs for the program too. So we built in some recruitment budget to be able to do that, particularly the marketing of the program. And that was another lesson learned that we'll talk about, I think, on the next slide. So Farrell, if you can go to the next slide. And I think that, again, one of the recruitment areas that we struggled with, that we didn't anticipate, was how many students would be, you know, nursing ready, I call it, who would have the vol core that they needed, their core, plus the prerequisites for nursing that were needed. And one way around this, and one lesson learned that we're doing, is that we've gone back and looked at what we accept as vol core courses and have broadened that. So that will help not only recruit our Tennessee students, but those who might want to transfer from another university in, and it'll help them meet the vol core for nursing a little bit easier. And also that we thought it just takes a long time to change assumptions. And assumptions on campus were, you know, if you came to UT and you didn't get into nursing as a freshman, it's almost impossible to get into nursing. And so we've been trying to advertise in the student newspaper, in the TREC, in the library, on their screens, you know, that the aperture is open to just get the word out from our general advisors on campus, you know, that who have been used to telling students, you don't even bother with nursing, or try for nursing, but it's such a long shot, and it's really a different day and age now. And so that was some of the recruitment. I think, Sandy, you might wanted to talk a little bit more about recruitment challenges, and then we can talk about implementation, lessons learned, and challenges.
Yeah, sure. So to tag on to what Vicki said about kind of a little bit of a surprise with in-state and out-of-state interest, you know, we did not hit our 75-25. In fact, we were more like 60-40 out-of-state, in-state in the first cohort, because students who have a higher tuition debt, you know, were more interested in, more likely to self-select our program. And so, you know, we've managed that. We think that will normalize a little bit over time, but part of what we did to try to help mitigate that was, for students who did not owe very much tuition, we converted some of what we would have spent based on average tuition to a stipend. So some of our students get about $17,000 in stipend that they can use at their discretion, you know, however they wish. That's paid out 25% in 25% increments each of the 4 consecutive semesters. And that helped us recruit a larger number of in-state students, because these students are so well qualified. There are a few of them that have 0 tuition debt, none whatsoever. So it was important to do that, to incentivize recruitment for those students. We also did a lot of other things to recruit. We held numerous informational sessions, open houses here at the medical center and at the university. We did tours of the hospital. We did a lot of gave a lot of description about what it's like to work at the University of Tennessee Medical Center, the fact that we're the region's only academic health system, only magnet designated, level 1 trauma, et cetera, and had a lot of touch points with these students and a lot of information sharing. One thing that was a bit of a surprise to me was the level of parental involvement. Parents came to information sessions, parents called us, we answered tons and tons of parent questions, because they're clearly very engaged with this cohort. Apparently I was left to my own devices as a student, but many of these parents are very, very engaged in the choices their students are making. And I think that went very well.
Sandy, let me jump in, because I want to say something also about the parent too. The University of Tennessee Medical Center took on the job of working with these students through the memorandum of understanding, because if that student did not stay or the graduate did not stay for the 3 years, they would owe some money back to the University of Tennessee Medical Center. But maybe you could talk a little bit about the MOU and the language in the MOU that was difficult and what we do around that.
Yeah, so the MOU was written by our legal team and went back and forth. The whole programmatic MOU went back and forth between the college and the medical center, but the MOU that the students signed in terms of their obligation to UT Medical Center was developed by our legal team. And some of just the legalese and the normal legal language that we're more accustomed to seeing was really a little bit intimidating to some of the students. So we had to really we modified that a little bit. We had to really reassure them that about what that really meant, and make sure they were fully informed about what they were obligated for if they in fact joined our program. One area that students were uncomfortable with initially, for example, this was a lesson learned, we had a non-compete clause that was a part of the contract, a part of the MOU, which basically said if a student left during the 3-year obligation period, they could not work, at a competing hospital in the area. We removed that because that sounded really scary to students, and it was really not a big deal to us anyway. It's something our attorneys had put in. So we tried to listen to what the students, the feedback they had, be responsive to that, try to make some of the language a little scary, and adjust where we felt it made sense to adjust.
This was a really high profile opportunity for both the medical center as well as the University of Tennessee, and people were really pleased with the relationship and what we brought together and were able to do in this short period of time. But it was a heavy lift in terms of having a lot of pressure in a very short period of time to implement something and hopefully have it be a success. And so one of the things that was also a lesson learned was, how do we communicate to each other? Because there was a lot of people involved. So Sandy and I at the top of our organizations were quite involved in all of this. But then we had finance people from both our organizations involved, the operations people involved, We had folks involved in the build out. And so just really being clear about who's in charge of, and who's going to be the communicator between the two organizations, and who's kind of responsible for how things, progress. And also being very clear about who's paying for what. Was really important you think that you got it all done and you got it all figured out, and then something else comes up. So it really has been a lot of learning around how do we communicate as partners together, how do we solve issues, how do we struggle when we don't agree on issues, or we don't agree that maybe someone, we think they should be paying for it, they think we should be paying for it. Well, how do we come together? And it's part of like that old, compromise in marriage kind of situation where, if you can negotiate and you both get parts of what you want, then that's a good deal. So, but communication was critically important. And I think in the middle of all of it, we really had to stop and say, okay, stop. Who's going to be the spokesperson for UTMC? Who's going to be the spokesperson for the College of Nursing? And that through those two people communicating, then information will trickle down.
We were also, I totally agree with what Vicki said. And we also, I think on both sides, were really fortunate to have very strong teams on at each entity who were very dedicated, were really excited about the project, who were very detail oriented and very talented to help, again, move this along at such a rapid pace. And I think in the end, we are really grateful for all the efforts that everybody provided to this successful outcome. And we really look forward to the future and to continuing to grow and advance our academic partnerships going forward. So next slide, Farrell. So I think that really concludes all we had in terms of a planned presentation, unless you have anything else you'd like to add, Vicki, but we certainly are eager and available to answer any questions anybody on the call has.
Yeah, thank you, Sandy. I guess the last piece I would put is this is such a win-win-win for everybody. And we just hope that maybe you all can take bits and pieces of this, because no program's going to look exactly alike or be exactly the same fit for different organizations in different parts of this state. But we do need to get as academic practice partners and work collaboratively to try to solve these really what you'd call wicked problems. And, I think I've been a nurse for a really long time, and staffing and nursing shortages have been a problem for a very long time. And I think the only way we're going to solve it is if we bring groups together and be creative and innovative. And so we were really pleased to be able to share with you today.
Thank you, ladies. We do have a few questions in the chat. We do have a request for your slides. The recording will obviously be available, but just wanted for that content. But we did have a question. I'll kind of go in order of receipt here. Question about for Vicki, how many students do you normally graduate outside of this program?
That's a great question. So we have been on a growth trajectory, and this year our projected junior class size was going to be about 190 students. And so then with the additional 42 that we took, we have a growth trajectory that's moving up into and this is just in our traditional BSN program. We are hoping to have class sizes of about 240. So we have a total of 1,204 students enrolled right now in all of our programs at UT. So we're fairly large, and it's been an interesting way to go about figuring out how to offer these classes and our regular classes together. And so it's not just like when we hired extra faculty for this, we looked at more of percentages. So if I had a student faculty who teaches pathophysiology, they might be 50% in this program and 50% teaching in the traditional program, because anybody who's in academia knows that certain people have certain specialties and do a good job teaching certain topics. So hopefully that answered your question, but we hope to, by the time we get full-fledged, we're going to be around 340 students graduating each year.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Our next question is, sorry, I should probably mention to you, the questions are from Katie Lefevre. And if you'd like to unmute, please unmute yourself, but I will go ahead and ask your question. This question is regarding the nurse tech program for the employment during the accelerated program. When does that start? Does it start as soon as they're in the program, or Sandy's in the dark, or if you give us some insight?
Yeah, so technically, and I apologize, my light, I wasn't moving around enough, so my light sensor went off. I guess that means my time's up. I don't know. So students really can apply at any point for a nurse technician role. And in fact, we've had a lot of students. There are a lot of UT College of Nursing students who work as technicians here in our medical center anyway. So they can apply at any point during their academic program, or they can even apply previously. We do orient them to basic skills, et cetera, and so there's not really a limitation on the timing for that employment.
Thank you.
Sure.
I'm sorry, attendees, I apologize. You cannot unmute yourself. If you'd like to raise your hand, I will unmute you for a question, or if you'd like to put it into the chat or the questions box. I apologize. That's one of the limitations of us here. So I'll look at that. And that's all the questions that I have. Diana Johnson said this is a wonderful partnership. I did have a quick question. In my experience, and we have several universities and medical centers that share a name, share a common mission, share collaboration in a lot of ways. How would you say this program, I guess we could assume, well, you're both UT, you're both in the same area, you probably had very strong partnerships. And obviously we know on both sides, we work with all the people that we need to get the job done. Can you provide us any insight into that partnership or the approach to that partnership that this program may have strengthened that partnership or brought you all together more?
I don't know if you want to take that first, or I'll give it a stab, Vicki. But I think there is sometimes a misperception because of the name that the University of Tennessee Medical Center has, that we are actually a part of the University of Tennessee, and we're not. I mean, we used to be historically, but in 1999 the entities separated, and the medical center, separated from the state, and our employees, became employed by the university health system, but we maintained the UT name. That's a very important part of our brand. There's tremendous value in it. We love it, but we're not as connected with the University of Tennessee as our name might imply. But it was very clear to us as an academic health system that the University of Tennessee is our primary academic partner. The University of Tennessee Center for the Health System is our medical school affiliate as an academic health system. And I look at the University of Tennessee system, as again, our number one primary academic partner. But I do think, coalescing around a program like this is really beneficial. And I think it's strengthened. I think it's evidence of a more robust, productive partnership between the two entities. I mean, Vicki and I work extraordinarily well together. We're excited about other opportunities in the future. So I think it's been very, very positive, and not just us. I think it's brought together her faculty and some of my team, my leadership team, in ways that we probably wouldn't have been able to work together before, just in a traditional approach.
Yeah, when you even think about the fact that we're working with your marketing department and my PR department around sharing this story too. And I agree with Sandy that, it does appear that we're, kind of attached at the hip because we're across from the medical center, but across the river from the medical center, but it really has taken, it's really about commitment, and it's commitment at all levels of saying that we're going to work together. It's not easy to work together. It would have been easier for me to not have 100 extra students. I mean, my goodness, this was a huge lift for us, but we knew it was the right thing to do. And I think we saw it even as the right thing to do beyond helping the medical center, because we're going to be putting out more nurses that are going to be available in the state and in the East Tennessee region because of this program. And we're giving nurses less debt and, quicker into the job market. And so, with less debt, that helps the economic driver of a nurse. Maybe that nurse will stay longer because they don't have so much debt to pay off, and, they can have a, great quality of life here in Knoxville. And so I think there was just a lot of ways to do it. I think the thing that I think about too throughout our state is, you're right, not all places look like we look. Not all places are a flagship university. Not all places are an academic health center with the resources and the abilities to attain a magnet status at this point. So, but that's why I say there's pieces of this that you can take, and it just takes two people with the support of their leadership to be able to come together and say, how can I help you? How can you help me? And in that, we're both going to become better. And so I think that, again, our folks at the level of our fiscal people have worked together now. Our lawyers have worked together now. Sandy and I work very well together. And you have to sprinkle it with a little bit of fun and a little bit of humor, too. So Sandy and I do like our wine, and we do get together every now and then for a glass of wine. And so, I think just trying again to think about relationship building and how key and important that is, and building trust, and knowing that each is in this, not for themselves, but really for the good of the organizations that we work with. And so, that, and it could be a really fun thing also to do.
Yeah. I think we also role model that for our teams, and that's been important. And, the reality is, I think you can really be, the data is sobering about where we are as a nursing profession with intent to leave the profession, potential shortages, et cetera. And I think we really are at a crossroads, at kind of an urgent crossroads, in our healthcare ecosystem. And so the more opportunities we can create to come together to find mutually beneficial solutions that not only benefit both entities, but really support workforce needs across our region, the better off we're going to be. I know that Vicki and I are happy and Farrell, if anybody requests our contact information, I'm happy to be available for any other questions or.
Well, Sandy,
needed.
Sorry to interrupt. We do have one question. Barbara, I've unmuted you if you'd like to ask your question.
Thank you. Thanks. Hi, everybody. This is Barb Wallace. I'm with LifePoint Health. And I apologize if you've already addressed this, but I was curious as to how these additional students impacted the clinical experiences. Did your existing students, were they able to continue to rotate at UTMC, or would they like to come to a LifePoint hospital to do a rotation?
So I'll tell you, that is something that's a great question, and it's something we've given a lot of thought to, because even though I mentioned, the UT College of Nursing is our primary academic partner, we also have other academic partners and other schools who depend on us for those rotational clinical opportunities. We believe that we're very clear, first of all, that our priority is to these students. So our priority for clinical placements and clinical rotations are to these students in whom we've made this big investment. But we think we're going to be able to accommodate the other students as well. We may need to look with some of our other rotations at less traditional hours or days of the week or some other things, but certainly with the numbers we have right now, with 42, and even when we get into the second cohort, we think we will be able to absorb that and still preserve, with some balancing and some flexibility, the other student rotations that we have historically been able to accommodate. Going forward, when we have 102 and 102 during that one semester when the two overlap, we're going to be very flexible, I think, in what we're able to offer other schools. But there is a limit to the number of rotations we can have, and so part of this is you do have to make a decision about where your priorities are going to be for student rotations. So we'll be happy to mention LifePoint if we have to pull any of our other student rotations, but I think we will be able to work it out.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. You have a couple of folks in the chat that said, well, we would be happy to take some. So if you need to move folks around.
I'm really curious about that. Really, are you
I am too, because we still
curious. So you have capacity for student rotations and not enough students to fill them?
Send them my way. Contact me.
Yeah,
this is Barb again, and I can't speak for each individual hospital, but I know overall our strategy has been, or our commitment has been to host students on a regular basis. So I don't know exactly for each of our hospitals, but it's just something that's near and dear to my heart. So I wanted I was just curious about that. Yeah.
But the one thing we did when we talked to UTMC about starting this program was we said we can't lose what we already have, because we struggle with this many students, and as we increase more, we struggle with having clinical sites. And the students don't like to travel, but our students are traveling up to an hour each way to get to a clinical site for clinical rotation. So I would bet that most nursing schools in this state are struggling with clinical sites. So please reach out to your neighboring school if you've got opportunities. I'm sure the deans and directors would really love to hear from you, as well as I would too.
Yeah. Yeah, and I would also just ask of anybody on the call if you know of well-qualified nursing students, because there are students all over the state and all over the country who are well-qualified, who are not able to get into a nursing program because of capacity constraints. And if you would help be our messenger and spread the word about this opportunity, we'd be really, really grateful for that.
Absolutely. Thank you all so much. I will share Dr. Leek and Dr. Niederhauser's contact information, as well as the recording today and our handouts. Again, appreciate so much your time, your work, your innovation, all of the wonderful things that you all are doing. And I hope to hear about lots more programs such as this as we go forward. So thank you all for attending today. Please remember that next Wednesday, from the same time, we will have a work-based learning. So learn all about how you can help support work-based learning for your high school students, for those folks who are under the age of 18, what rules and regulations are around for them, and hear about some of the great programs that we have capturing those high school students into those healthcare roles and employment as well. So again, my name is Farrell Thomas. If you all have any questions, please reach out to me directly, and we appreciate you so much. Thank you, and have a great rest of your day.
Thank you all.
Bye, everyone.